Good afternoon. My name is Ken Moriano. I lead our Scott Data Center, Scott Data Organization. Want to make sure we introduce our esteemed panel here. Go ahead, Trevor.
Good afternoon. My name is Trevor Meekum. I have a small consulting firm called Nexus Consulting. My background, 25 years in the intersection between technology, AI, and the industrial market segments of construction, agriculture, mining. Grateful to be here with all of you guys today. It's my first time attending this conference, so appreciate it.
Great. Chris Campbell, I'm a senior director for AI, and I have a few different areas that I'm responsible for at Worldwide Technology. So I have GPU as a service, AI as a service, facilities and infrastructure, so all the things that have to do with building your data centers, power cooling, all those sorts of things, as well as our offerings around GPU as a service and AI as a service. I've been at Worldwide for 8 years, also my first time here at Data Center World, so happy to be here.
Thanks. Kevin DeWalt, founder and CEO of Perlego. I guess I've been in AI for about 30 years now, so I made my first neural network back in 1994, so 30 years later I can finally put my graduate degree to work. I'm a practitioner, so at Perlego we're a small consulting company and we help the Fortune 500 on two things, with their AI strategies, which is mostly trying to figure out where do we use this technology, and then we do the customized engineering, the model development and deployment in their engineering systems. So all my perspective comes from being on the front line of doing this, working with CEOs and boards and companies trying to figure out how do they make use of this technology. Seeing a lot of things not work, and hope I have a chance to share some wisdom with you today.
Thank you, guys. So I think what you'll see, if you read, I'm guessing you read the abstract, the overview of this talk. We operate a traditional, retail colocation operation and how we transition to an AI data center. But I think more important than that, and we'll definitely get into those details, is use case, practitioner, and hearing from our panel. One of the things that I continue to struggle with is not hearing who the end customer is in many of the talks around the country at different conferences and who's actually using GPU. We're talking a lot about power, compute, but what are those use cases? What is that end user experience? What's the ROI around that? So I think you're going to get, I hope, some really good insight from the panelists and hopefully some good information around what we did to transform our organization. What you see is a timeline. This is pretty high level. Our journey technically began prior to 2006. I started with our organization in 2002. In 2006, our first customer in our, traditional data center was the Department of Defense. So when you look at our journey, we moved from 2006 to present day, and really our entire background, ethos, our approach is driven through customer data. So looking at customer feedback, going back to who that end customer is, for us is the key inflection point. It's the insight that we get in how we operate our business. Before we go further, I'm just curious to understand who's in the crowd, and maybe our panelists could also understand. So if you don't mind, show of hands, who out here is a colocation data center owner operator? Do we have any of those in here? Thank you. How many are data center consultants? Do we have vendors? How about design, architects, design MEP? Equipment manufacturers? Investors? So last year I had the privilege of speaking at a few different conferences, and each conference when I stepped off the panel or the stage, I was approached by 4 folks every time, without fail. Private equity, venture capital, owner-operator, and builder, construction types. Usually the same types of questions around investing in AI, which ran the gamut of what they were looking for, insights they were looking for, and why did we do what we were doing. You look at the timeline, we hit some key points over our history, so I just want to call out a few items around being an owner-operator and moving into what we're doing. So one of them is internal staffing. So I've been told as an owner-operator, we take on more risk by not outsourcing mechanical, electrical, IT. All of that is in-house. In 2007, we made a deliberate decision to bring that in-house. And the intent is really to be different than what we've heard at different panels, presentations here, and in other conferences, be fully integrated as a team, so we're not siloed. which oftentimes happens in data centers. So our approach has been very different, fully integrated team, a lot of collaboration, which results in, to date, we've not had any outages, we've not had any downtime in our history. And I credit that to our team, our integration, our collaboration. In 2008, we expanded and added colocation. So the first customer, as I noted, was the Department of Defense. They took 50,000 square feet. It's a SCIF. That was personnel and compute. And we added a wing of 30,000 feet in 2008 because we saw a need in the market and we were being approached. So I'm going to give you, hopefully, a very brief history of our operation. In 2010, government let us know that they were actually vacating the contract that expired and they were taking the combatant terrorism mission, that's what was taking place in our facility, to the military base nearby. We're in Omaha, Nebraska. The military base is in Bellevue. That particular base handles our nuclear mission as a combatant command. So the project was taken back to the base, and we took that opportunity to repurpose the data center, but it was driven, as I highlight here, customer discovery. So we actually spoke to many customers, not through a survey, but really direct interaction, primarily with CIOs, to understand what would the market bear, travel the country, and ultimately convinced our benefactor, our chairman and founder, Walter Scott Jr., we needed to add power and cooling. We needed to plan for the future. Didn't really know what the future looked like, but we did have data points around high density. At the time, high density was 10, 12, 14 kW cabinets. I don't know if any of you remember PhotoBucket, but it was one of the original photo sharing companies, online offering. And they had a requirement of 36 cabinets, 10 kW a cabinet. And that got our attention. This is in 2011 when we were seeing 4 to 6 kW a cabinet. So the bet or the belief was that adding 20 megawatts of power, cooling, high density capacity in the 50,000 square feet that the government was vacating would position us well for the future. So we weren't thinking 3 or 5 years, we were thinking probably 10 years, but a little bit of crystal ball, we weren't exactly sure. Fast forward, we look at 2023. It was mentioned, I think, yesterday with some of the research, but May of 23, Bill Clayman was on stage, I was in the audience, and he was delivering a keynote around AI and the implications around AI. Taking a step back, in March of 23, before I ended up in Austin at the conference, we met with CIOs, 3 Fortune 500 companies that are our traditional colocation customers. We asked them, AI, is this something that's on your roadmap? Are there any implications for your organization? We were trying to understand from the customer, what do we need to address what the customer demand or need may be? The answer was, this is not on our roadmap. It's a board level conversation. We're humoring them, and this is, I'm paraphrasing, this is my version, but we're a ways away from AI discussion, actually seriously considering any implementation. I listened to Bill. Co-locations are not prepared for the workloads coming, can't handle the compute for power and cooling. I messaged him on LinkedIn and said, we've been ready since 2011, which started our journey to accelerate what we're presenting today. And then lastly, the partners here, and we'll talk a bit about our validation on executing on our proof of concept. So some high-level points. In 2020, we moved, because of the market and our customer real feedback, to a consumption-based ERP to behave more like a cloud provider. So we were recognizing that that was the disposition of what our customers were looking for, and also we moved to developing a service offering because of the pandemic. We never took a day off. We were on-prem. Companies would call. We have about 110 customers, co-location, large and small. So I guess we're considered a retail co-location operation, not serving hyperscalers, but enterprise, large and small. They were letting us know they were not dispatching any technical resource to our facility. So we were operating as their smart hands, remote hands, without a formal offering. So we recognized consumption-based and a service offering were key for our future. Along the process in 2023, again, after the Bill Clayman, he's here in the second row, presentation here at Data Center World, we moved down the path of network and storage as a service, moving towards services offerings as a co-location operator. Again, migrating from infrastructure to white glove service. We were taking care of our customers already, but now we are actually formalizing a catalog of services to the end customer. What you see up on the screen is our ecosystem of partners. Very fortunate to have these partners, and what they have done is enabled us to execute on our overall strategy. We're never going to be all things to all people. And prior to this, we were talking a bit about 2023 and where these folks were in 2023 and their mindset and what was happening, if at all, in AI. So Trevor, would you talk a little bit about 2023, where you were? I mean, presumably everyone was adopting AI, right? And you were developing use cases and executing within enterprise and no friction at all.
Yeah, no, none whatsoever. I would just say, prefacing where I was formerly with some of the largest organizations over the last 25 years, and my experience has been very much enterprise commercial facing around AI, predictive insights. And the biggest thing was building kind of a strategy around some cultures that didn't really see that, based by it just by design and the fact of what they are, right? When you're a machinery company, this was something that was not really high on the radar, and the spectrum, just understanding that they're defining a lot of that technology around things of IT versus saying, no, what are the predictive insights that we can actually do to go make decisions with as a part of that? I would say the biggest struggle, or one of the biggest challenges, was really understanding at that time is being able to define the use cases and understanding what is something worth in AI in an application. That's what I was able to determine. The issue was the unpreparedness of larger organizations, commercial organizations, that really were not there and truly understanding it. So planning and building for the future of being able to accept AI models and what you were going to have intensified data sets that you had to really learn from was not really a daily water cooler conversation. And being able to have that kind of support, that was one of the biggest gaps that and biggest challenges that we had to overcome and really had to view and finish at that time.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So, and as we embarked on our journey moving into AI and a very deliberate effort, part of our challenge was we were not well versed in external resources to have customer-facing support. We were a colo, we operated within our building, but we were taking on, for obvious reasons, probably the challenge of managing and operating and holding and protecting customer data. So it changed our framework, and one of the groups we looked to, and Bill was kind enough to introduce us to, from the onset was a partnership program with WWT, looking at infrastructure, what are the options around power distribution, who are the vendors we should be talking to, who's best in class. September of 23, we took a field trip, spent a full day, 8-10 hours from Omaha to St. Louis. Chris, you want to talk a little bit about the partner program and some of those aspects of WWT's offering?
Yeah, sure. So, 2023 was still relatively new for AI for us, but we'd been doing machine learning for over 10 years. We had over 200 data scientists on staff. ChatGPT 4 happens, and all of a sudden it escalates everything. And so for us, as we were working with you all, it was an opportunity for us to say, what's the architecture look like? What's the infrastructure look like? We have something called the AI Proving Ground, which is a $500 million lab in St. Louis that has the ability to test up to 15 different reference architectures. At that time, we weren't up to 15, but we certainly were able to show and talk to Ken about what is the art of the possible. We are soup to nuts, so we do facilities, we do infrastructure, we do it all. So our experts were able to come in and really help and work alongside you to determine what do you want to accomplish, how do you want to accomplish it, and what can we do to help. So
yeah, they were a great test bed and laboratory environment for us to have A/B testing around power distribution, modular units. Was bus even available for distribution and supporting GPU? We were trying to understand which GPU, which chipset, what was becoming available. You all had insight into roadmap with NVIDIA and others, and again, we had the capacity, and as Bill would say, we had the power, and we were demonstrating bravery. We didn't have the models from what I heard earlier, but I think we'll get there. Kevin, 2023, what did the world look like for you?
Yeah, thank you. So similar to Chris, does anybody remember a YouTube video that came out in March of 2023? It was called Sparks of AGI. Anybody recall watching that? Anybody out there in the AI space? It was Sebastian Bubeck, who's a researcher at Microsoft. They had the GPT-4 model for about 6 months, and they published a paper and did a YouTube talk about their experience. And it was stunning. It was a 10-year leap ahead of what any of us thought what was going to be possible. If you'd have told me and our researchers and our team a couple of weeks ago, like, that's what's coming out of OpenAI in a couple of weeks, we would have laughed you out of the room. And so when we saw that happen, we realized we had to pivot the company. And if you've ever run a small business, having to completely pivot a small business is a painful, hard decision because it means firing clients and learning new skills and new team members. But we went through all that, and it took us about 2 years to completely pivot to focusing on generative AI. So for us, that was a big shift, and I think we will look back on that March of 23 as a species-changing moment because that's the moment that this technology really arrived for everyone.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. And in 23, the ecosystem of partners, and these are true partners, not by name, not just by brand, but actual engagement. We reconnected, Kevin, after several years, and not to speak for you, but Prolego would work on AI efforts, consulting engagements, and they needed a place to land workload. So that informed us as well as what their customer profile looked like. Was a public cloud good enough? Was security an issue? Data leakage? Was privacy an issue? So we were informed based on what we were gathering from these three partners as well as the others you see up on the screen. One of the things that my mentor and our benefactor, Walter Scott Jr., consistently said was cover the downside and the upside will take care of itself. Well, we ran the economics, studied the math, looked at our traditional colo. What would HPC colo, what if we only housed, which is an effort in and of itself, other groups' GPUs? What if we just provided capacity? When we ran the numbers and the analysis, it penciled out that we should be offering a full suite of service, an AI platform or GPU as a service. So I guess in today's world, it's NeoCloud. 2 years ago, not called NeoCloud. The last year, not called NeoCloud. But we were clearly a first mover, very early adoption in the strategy. So the math penciled out, but also internally, and I think I would say with our parent organization, a comment was made, there was more risk in not moving forward because of our advantages having high-density power and cooling available, moving into services very deliberately, and also having a network of partners. So more risk in not moving forward than in moving forward. So for the colos out there, the traditional colocation operators, I want to emphasize really taking note and inventory of your capabilities, ideally having a services offering, and really surrounding yourselves with an ecosystem of partners that are best in class. And we're fortunate and blessed that we were able to convince some folks. We developed some credibility, got some attaboys with the folks up here and what I pointed to earlier on the screen as far as our ecosystem. What that forced us to do, though, is expand our team. So, talent is difficult to come by, but we were fortunate to grow our IT team, our services organization, and ultimately deploy, and these are actual photos, so they're not the best graphics, but they're actual photos. So the bottom cabinet is our proof of concept. So that's 6 DGXs, 48 H100s, deviating from the NVIDIA architecture. And the reason we did that wasn't for density's sake. We were trying to provide a vertically integrated solution, maximize our square footage and power, and ultimately reduce cost and overhead in a complex deployment. And we were successful in doing that. We've onboarded customers and actually been getting customer feedback. So going back to the original point I made, these folks represent actual use case knowledge, working, advising, building use cases. We were experiencing that with them as well as directly with customers. Under the infrastructure, those were key points that we had to navigate. We had to understand the architecture, the design, and had to come up with our own novel reference architecture around our GPU deployment because we deviated from the NVIDIA architecture. So top of rack was no longer available for network switching and other complementary tech. So this was part of our journey. It's fairly compelling as far as the math and why we moved into the services offering. Really won't go into my conversation around use cases other than we did validate multi-tenant, which was our colocation history. So our offering needed to be multi-tenant, needed to be able to have a dynamic, flexible offering of a cloud burstability, if you will. So growing from 10, 20, 50 GPU availability to 200 to really capture what we were seeing from customer insights. But I want to call on you all. So Trevor, if you don't mind talking about the graphic on the top there. And
it looks weird, doesn't it? It looks silly. You got cattle
you
up
have to
there
break
with
it down for
AI
everybody.
and on that side. I'll break that down. going back to what we were talking about in 23 and being able to understand that we had a use case and we needed to figure out something. This is what you're actually seeing of what had been built to get to the level of potential commercialization. And specifically in one particular segment was based around infrastructure to be able to then apply edge compute and cameras in the most remote places that you could possibly go. And that's what you really saw there. The issue was, and the gap was this. How am I able to manage that kind of data in that remote setting and train on models in the time that I actually needed it?
So this is a cattle pen, yes?
Yes. Yeah. So when you start looking at it, and I focus a lot, my background, it becomes into the precision technology space of agriculture, construction, mining. This particularly where I grew up in Idaho on an actual farm, knowing that this was an underserved area, that a lot of this technology was going to be needed. Why? Because labor costs are high and the shortage of labor to do these kind of work is very much among us as a part of this. And this is what the ask was from those voice of customers. So understanding how someone would pay for this, which is a per head model actually. And we weren't selling widgets, we're not selling any of that. We were literally doing the way they buy and sell their livelihood, their crops, their cattle.
So you were within the large enterprise,
Yes.
targeting ag,
Yes.
building a model for cattle owner-operator.
Correct.
From the ground up build?
From the ground up build to be able to customize models, nothing off of the shelf, which is a lot of intense work.
So if you wouldn't
yeah,
mind, the
please.
model, the graphic we see up here,
Yes.
what did you build? What were you monitoring with the
We were monitoring
animals?
all of the health. So thinking about animals that potentially have behavioral health indicators, one that's limping. Are they going to feed? Are they going to water? Are they laying down too long? Literally facial recognition just the same on cattle, being able to actually do that, but behavioral monitoring of the actual body, because cattle are not exactly, tolerant of looking at a camera. You're not always capturing their face. You need to do behavioral monitoring of their movement of the structure and ID and track every single animal 24/7.
So computer vision at the edge,
At the edge.
built a model,
Yes.
and you were processing it, and we got connected through that.
Yeah, so we were processing 115,000 images per animal per hour on that side, and there was just no way, not that we didn't have a great engineering AI team that we did, but weeks and months, which really when you're delivering on a commercial scale model takes its toll, and you have your certain constraints that you have to work within as a part of it, which then allowed us to be able to then start working with you, which turned those weeks and months into literally hours to be able to have a refined model that allowed us to then go deploy into the actual commercial environment.
So Trevor's use case, again, customer-driven information data points, helped us understand a large volume of video, machine learning, computer vision use cases around AI. It informed us not only of our initial chip acquisition of H100, but we're recently deploying L40S because of the nature of the type of workloads we're seeing. Kevin, you want to talk a bit about the use cases you're seeing and how easy it is to work as a consultant in enterprise?
Yeah. Well, I think if you work in this industry at all, you've probably figured out by now there's just a tremendous amount of BS out there, right? And there's just outrageous claims about, we're doing $65 billion a year in Gen AI work, Gen AI and data work. And what they're not telling you is that they've thrown every project they have into the Gen AI bucket and claiming that they're doing millions of dollars in Gen AI work. It's early, and the technology is advancing very, very fast, but finding ways to actually deploy it into a company to solve real problems is still hard, and you have to really look at the task level. What are people trying to do? And I think that the world is now calming a little bit down from the AI agent hysteria that took over the world for the past couple of months. Once people realized that you couldn't just, loose AI and have it take over your sales process and magically do things for you. So yeah, it's still very much a groundwork in trying to look at what the company's trying to do. And typically, when we go into an organization, I'm trying to figure out three things. Can I get the data out of their documents and data stores into the LLM? Can I get the context into the LLM? Can the LLM do the job? And can I build an evaluation set so I can prove to the client that it works correctly? And so if you're struggling to find the right use cases, there's no magic answer out there other than getting in and really looking at the data and the tasks that the company's trying to do.
Kevin, do you have a nugget, thumbnail size of an actual use case, probably don't use the name of the company, but you deal with large organizations. Want to give a little context conversation around the use
Yeah,
case?
a real quick one I'd say is a common one that I can say to everyone is proposal development. So if you work in any kind of large services organization, you're cranking out proposals all the time. Figuring out how can we use AI to generate the proposals is one that's starting to work very well. And I think what we've discovered, it's not just about like automating proposals because your capture team hates coming in on a weekend and spending all weekend writing a proposal. It's actually extracting the tacit knowledge that is embedded within the organization. And so, people know what they did before, how to write a proposal, extracting templates, checklists, reviews, the things that people are sort of learning how to do. That's one of the ones we're seeing emerge across lots of different organizations. Beyond that, the most common ones are ones where you have text as part of your business workflow. In financial services, things like life insurance, which really haven't automated and have traditionally still been running on paper. Those kind of organizations like that are seeing a lot of automation. So summarizing text, extracting things, categorizing them, routing them, generating responses. That's where we're seeing the most immediate usage.
Thanks, appreciate it. And Chris, I had an opportunity and a pleasure to meet your CEO, Mr. Kavanaugh. And Jim Kavanaugh declared a little over a year ago, maybe a year and a half, AI first, the $500 million commitment in AI. Your AI proving ground. You want to talk a little bit about what you're seeing? Because I think those are more experimental, studio lab experiments from large and small organizations. But I think it's important for the crowd to understand, again, use case and what you're seeing at that earliest stage. And a little profile on the types of companies. There may be a misconception. The 800-pound gorilla, big enterprises, got this figured out.
Yeah, so a few different things. I did mention the AI proving ground for us at Worldwide. So $500 million lab with now 16 reference architectures that we have. We've made this commitment, as I'd said, over time to be able to access this. We work with our partners to be able to do that. What we're allowing people to do and what we're seeing is that folks can't go and run a use case even with synthetic data. They are struggling to be able to find a home for it. So we allow them to do that. And in many cases, it's just to prove out to the board that they've got an idea and it'll work, and then go get funding from the board. There is a lot of money sitting on the sidelines. I have a journey slide that I use when I present that talks about where use cases are and data readiness is, and then you go into some type of model development, then you pick your architecture, and then you ultimately figure out where to deploy that. So as we look at where folks are in that journey, even our customers, we have Fortune 500 customers and Fortune 200, a lot of them as well, they are still sitting there trying to figure this out. So there is money on the sidelines. They are very much looking at use cases. In many cases, to kind of Kevin's point, they want use cases that are going to succeed. So there's kind of three things that they look at, or we look at as well, which is, does it cost money or save money? Does it reduce risk in some way, or does it eliminate human middleware? And so for us, we've been able to help our clients do that in that AI proving ground, which gives them that opportunity to go back and say, okay, I need $10 million, I need $20 million. If you look at what an NVIDIA pod costs, it's about $10 million, a SuperPod's about 30. And then this sort of leads us to where our challenges are with our customers is that no one's data center is ready to handle this stuff. I was kind of smiling when you were talking 10 to 12 kW per cabinet. And if you were at GTC a couple of weeks ago, Jensen talked about 600 kW per cabinet in a couple of years. So I think we're all seeing this change. And for us within the AI Proving Ground, it gives our customers an opportunity to really try things out, be able to see if those use cases work, and then for them, go back and make those larger decisions they have to make the investments that they need.
I appreciate that. So to clarify, our proof of concept in the next 16 as we scale cabinets of now 6 HGXs, 48 H100s in each are 70 kW cabinets. Motivair is one of our partners that was on the graphic earlier. So we leverage rear heat exchange doors. So the non-traditional, still air-cooled, but leveraging rear heat exchanger enables us to scale, and we can scale to about 100 cabinets within our historical, maybe outdated colocation operation. And listening to Wade earlier, I was pleased that he called out colocations can participate in this AI opportunity instead of being spectators. We were very proactive in that regard. So this is kind of a leading to witness. Where would you put the workloads after your experiment in the lab?
Well, I'll start and go wide, which is good. So Foundry Research came out with a study last fall that talked about where AI workloads are going to sit. About a third of them are going to sit on-prem, about a third are going to sit in the cloud somewhere, and then they said 24% will be in a private hosted GPU as a service-like facility. I actually think it's going to be a lot higher. I think it's going to be up in the 40s, as I'd mentioned earlier. It's very difficult to find homes for this space, and the GPU as a service market, which is what Scott Data has, offers that leasing ability, if you know what that is, to our clients to be able to go and run it. If you're familiar with how the training versus inferencing works, on the training side, it requires a heavier compute and a heavier stack to run. And then once you inference, you can do it a little lighter weight. So a lot of folks will come in and maybe lease from Scott Data for those 6 months, do all the testing that they might need, and then they can move to a different type of architecture so they can inference, and it saves money, saves power, and then they can run that long term. So there's really this sort of path that you can walk through, and you know, I call it the AI, hybrid AI workload journey, because it can go in a lot of different ways. I think GPU as a service is part of it. I think hosted AI is part of it. I think where you put that also depends on portability, security, what you want with your data. So I think it's very logical for those of you thinking about it. It's not just always HPA or on-prem. It can be cloud. It can be private hosted AI. I'm actually bullish about private hosted AI, not because that's the practice I run at Worldwide, but I actually physically think this is the space people are going to go, given the uncertainty they have and where the budgets go. They want to try it out. They want to take it to the next step. It makes a lot of sense to use that as well.
So speaking on behalf of our organization, we've been on this journey, which I mentioned, and you saw the graphic of our roadmap here, our history, really accelerated from May 23 until current. Extremely complex effort. Currently, we are scaling and deploying, as I mentioned, 16 additional cabinets, 768 additional H100s. We have 10,000 fiber cables that we are testing. Each fiber takes 20 minutes to test and validate. So it's not a trivial undertaking. So going back to the actual theme of the talk, concrete to cloud, traditional colocation to AI, really, I hope you understand the scope, the breadth of what we've undertaken, that it is well within the realm of possibility for a traditional colocation operation. If you have power and cooling or can solve for those, and strongly emphasizing a service offering, what we do can either reside there or be developed in that location, wherever the colo may be. But I want to emphasize the requirement, I believe, to have the ecosystem of partners, the know-how. The list we have for 2025 on the screen, those are all things that must be tackled. That doesn't mean that we, on our own, as an organization, are tackling each of these. I mean, Kevin, AI education, give us a little conversation on workshops and AI education at the very early stages and what you've encountered. And again, these are, what, Fortune 1000s?
Yeah, pretty much all Fortune. Customers are still really confused about this technology, and I'm surprised that how many are just now rolling out access to things like Copilot, or there people have tried ChatGPT, but there's really very little understanding about what the technology can do and the constraints. And my business partner is constantly smacking me upside the head, saying, dumb it down. You got to take a few steps back and explain to people what all these things mean. So I think what we found is that if you're trying to get budget for Gen AI, sell Gen AI into organizations, don't assume because the person writing the check has leader of Gen AI in their title, or CTO, or they have data scientists. Don't presume that they actually understand what this technology is and what it can do. We've had to have some sort of workshop or education with every single client we've had. And we've now started looking at ways to actually do the workshops with Copilot or other Gen AI tools with our clients, so that instead of coming in and having me blather about what AI can do, have them interact with Gen AI tools like Copilot to explore how can they use it in their work. And that really seems to help people learn a lot more quickly.
Trevor, a little bit on you. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and to kind of add to that, I completely agree with Kevin. You look at this kind of technology, whether it's in GPU service, whether it's in building AI models as a part of it. The simple fact in anything in technology, simple is hard to do. That's what you're doing on the back end of this as a part of it, and looking at even large corporate entities that I've been affiliated with, work through as a part of this. This is still an unknown, and it is fear, uncertainty, and doubt in the minds of what this really is. Ironically, we deal with it every day when we're talking on our phone or we're doing anything, and we're just not translating the simplicity of what it needs to come out of that, and that's just value. Whether that's bottom line savings from a commercial lens or a top line growth initiative, right? Of being able to make more with less as a part of it. I think that's kind of the biggest takeaway, that is in seeing a typical use case as a part of it. A lot of it that's being missed is, where's the ROI in this, and who's paying for this? At the end of the day, who's going to? That's the biggest question I got back. It wasn't about GPUs. It wasn't about GPUs as a service as a part of it. What they didn't understand and get as a part of this is, right, what's the simple application that I can grab that is going to allow me to go make a decision quicker on that I need, right? That's what I think the biggest thing is, the most powering thing to actually walk away with from this week.
You beat me to the question. I was going to
so
ask
sorry.
if each of you have seen measurable ROI with the work you have done.
It is.
So you have you
Absolutely.
seen measurable ROI?
You want me to answer that one? Yeah, so I'll just do a quick story, but we looked at 75 different use cases when it came to Worldwide to do our own internal AI use cases. And so we chose 3. One of them was a generative AI assistant we call Atom AI. We use our platform to be able to build that out, and we have successfully done that, rolled that out to our company, over 5,000 users, and we're able to save folks about 30 to 35% of their time on normal tasks and research. We also do an RFP assistant, which is much like what Kevin spoke about. And, we at Worldwide deal with a lot of proposals every week. And so we're able to reduce that time by 60% by pre-filling and automating some of the processes around that. So that was real ROI for us as well. And then finally, we use a coding assistant. If you're familiar with a company called Codium, they just changed to Windsurf, which is their product. It's fantastic. But Codium is a coding assistant that we've been able to put to over 400 coders out there and save them time, give them actual automation of some of the tasks that they have from a coding standpoint, and then be able to do higher value tasks on their own time. So it's been really tremendous for us, but we're continuing to look at others. We have a 4 million square foot facility for supply chain, so that's one of our next ones we're looking at. But we call it drinking your own champagne, eating your own dog food, whatever you want to call it. But that's what we try to do at Worldwide. So those use cases get a lot of attention from our customers because they think, you're really doing this. This is how you're doing. Can you build an RFP assistant for us? Can you build a generative AI for us? So those are the types of things we're seeing.
Measurable ROI, Kevin?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's selective and specific, and it's like some of the use cases that Chris found. That's where we're finding value. I think the magical AI, we got rid of our whole sales team, and now it's all automated. I haven't seen anything like that. But it's people who are smart and careful and surgically insert this technology in the right places. And most of the efficiencies are helping people work more efficiently more than automating things. And so any kind of business process that you can introduce a technology, either as a tool or a process into the workflow that helps. The way I like to think of it is you want to automate the grunt work so that people can focus on the substance. And if you can find those kind of opportunities, that's where you're going to get the kind of efficiencies that Chris mentioned.
So we're going to wrap up with key takeaways. I'd like to offer a couple. One, if you're an existing colocation operation, you have a competitive advantage. It's an unfair advantage. You have a captive audience of customers. That's what we had. So that's how we conducted our customer interviews. We went to the customers. We had fortunate we have a relationship with CIO level. So that was where we started. So we got unique insight with the captive audience. We weren't out in the wild hunting. We already had a history with low churn, high trust with the customers. So that enabled us to really get unique insight. So I believe, and we are demonstrating, colocation in existence has an unfair advantage. The other thing that we've seen, and in particular with the terminology being used now at Worldwide and NVIDIA around foundry and factory, the lab or the studio where the experimenting takes place, that allows us to allocate GPU resources, have our team work closely with the customer, and understand work size, the size and scope of the workload. Oftentimes people overbuy or they think they need more. We had a customer come to us and they said they needed 500 H100s. They said they will quickly grow to 5,000. It sounded interesting and appealing, and we actually talked to them, it was a fraction of that. So they really don't understand the size of the workload. So we work closely with the customers to help them understand workload sizing, onboard them for a trial period, 90 days, nominal cost, and that way they can understand really what's the right fit for their organization. We're not going to sell them something that they really don't need. We are a vertically integrated solutions provider. That's what we've evolved into. But the backdrop of that is the unfair advantage of owning and operating our own building, which I don't know of another neocloud out there that's doing that. So we understand the cost structure and can leverage that, as well as the mentioned earlier IT, mechanical, electrical, all in-house. So we can support and guarantee uptime, privacy, and security. So for us, that's the playbook I believe colocation operators should really look at, is the partnership, vertically integrated, and targeting the initial colocation customers they have within their building envelope. Takeaways? Key takeaway for the group?
I would say just having an idea of what the finish line looks like from an enterprise and commercial perspective backing into this, right? Some of the use case example was that actually started on a spreadsheet to understand what the ROI was going to be before even selecting anything. And understanding where there's investments, no different than what you're investing in internally to create this kind of functionality or create this kind of data center for infrastructure. It was also just understanding what is going to marry up and match up to that with more of a focus versus casting a wider net, and have purpose in mind and tactical and practical thoughts around what that application is going to mean, because somebody has to pay for that at the end of the day.
Key takeaway?
Sure. We're only at the beginning. I think there's so much that's going to come, and I call this an iPhone moment. If we remember that the iPhone we got in 2007, we couldn't have figured out Instagram, or we couldn't have figured out TikTok, or what the influence of that was going to be. We are only at the beginning of that journey. What we in this room will be thinking about a lot is the basics, how we're going to go run all this stuff. So power, we all have heard enough about power. We know it's in scarce supply. There's got to be better ways to run this stuff. You got to deal with innovation. You're also looking at how ultimately people are going to follow in each other's footsteps here, because the first movers are going to have some advantage, but I think they're also going to benefit from those that are in that second place to be able to really follow a proven methodology. No CIO wants to lose their job and gamble $10 million on NVIDIA if it's not going to work, or if that use case is not going to work. So I would say we are very much at the beginning of what we're trying to do, and take that journey very, very intentionally. And as you continue that journey, as you do that research and you continue to understand better, you're going to see great opportunities to be successful.
Kevin, takeaway?
Yeah, use it. Use AI for everything. So sign up for a subscription service from Google, Anthropic, OpenAI, whatever your provider is, and just use it yourself and try to use it in everything you do. I mean, anything I do, I use OpenAI, ChatGPT. I'm usually speaking to it instead of typing, because typing is kind of a pain. And nothing you can do professionally is a better investment other than getting skilled yourself at using this tech.
So we have time for questions. Does anybody have a question? Nobody courageous enough?
He's over here.
Ah.
I'm nervous. He's been taking notes the whole time. So
It's been great. You mentioned things, Kevin, you mentioned things that weren't working or that have been tough. And can you talk about the examples and lessons learned and things we can avoid in our own journeys?
The two biggest mistakes we see are picking the wrong problem to work on and having the wrong methodology, right? Not having the right development approach and approaching it like a machine learning project or a data science project. I'll start with the first one. Picking the right project. Look for ways that you can deploy these large language models as a general purpose technology and get value through simple data processing and prompts. Because I guess maybe I'll steal Ken's line of Mr. Scott of covering your downside. Those are the ones that are going to be low risk in terms of deployment. You're not going to have to try to fine-tune models or train models, which are higher risk. We look for those kind of use cases, ones where you can actually just use it. So can I take the large language model and with prompts and simple data processing, create value from it? Those are the best ones to have, and it also protects you against the future-proofing of the technology. One of the reasons we advocate pursuing those is because it is changing so fast, and we've seen over and over where people will invest a lot of money in customizations, either fine-tuning a model or building complex data pipelines that they kind of have to throw out because the foundational models are getting so good. That's not always the case. Sometimes there are harder problems and you have to do more. But if you can pick situations like that where you can use it as a general purpose technology, then that's the first way to to mitigate your risk. And the second way is begin with a good evaluation set. Traditionally, like for the past 20 years, whenever we've been building software technology, the number one risk has been market risk if you're a startup, or adoption risk if you're building for the enterprise, right? We know we could build, an enterprise software, a mobile app. The thing is anybody going to use it? We don't have that same risk with generative AI. There's actually technology risk, and the best way to mitigate that as fast as possible is building a good evaluation set and reviewing that with your business customers to make sure you're solving the right problem and that it's giving the right result. I'm sorry, that was a lot there, but pick the right problem, have the right approach.
Any other questions?
That was a good question. Come on, someone else has to have a good question.
Big fan. Love what you guys are doing. That's good. Thanks for the shout out. Appreciate that. From an infrastructure perspective, Ken, how are you seeing sort of the rest of the industry adopt these technologies? And it's sometimes you see it fast paced, sometimes you see it slow. Maybe this is a question also for Chris in terms of the partnerships that you're seeing as well. Do you see the rest of this industry listening? Do you think that other people are catching up? Do they understand that they have this sort of captive audience? And then, Chris, I'd love to hear what others that are like Ken doing. Are they trying to approach something similar? Do they finally see that they do have that captive audience, and many of those customers just don't want to go to the cloud? They want to do AI where their data is already living.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and start. So that's a great question, Bill. Thanks. Nice to see you again, buddy. It's been a while. But I do think for our, from what we see our customers looking at is this evolution of space and time and how they're going to go to market with what they've got. So let's go back to that power challenge. Let's go back to the technology challenge that they have. Is that over time it takes 3 years to build a new data center. Okay, so if you're going to make some decisions now about how to go build a data center, you might have 3 years to go build it out. And then ultimately, is that going to be good enough in 3 years based on that investment? So what we're seeing is newer technologies are making it not only more efficient, and GPU as a service or cloud GPU cloud is one of those areas that we see. Now, there's a lot of money in this space. I think I saw a couple private equity people in the room. There's probably 200 people out there looking for money right now that have access to power in this space. I think maybe 10 to 15% will make it. What I look for, at least from a worldwide standpoint, is existing business, much like what Ken had. So he knows and understands how to run a data center. He understands the commitment that's made. He understands the money behind it. We have people with access to power that are just saying, build us a facility, throw a bunch of NVIDIA at it, and by the way, can we staff it for us? Can you build us a solutions catalog? Can you do all those things? Hey, nothing wrong with that. We're happy to help people do that, but it's going to be a lot of competition for that particular group to start showing up in the next couple of years, and will they be able to make it or not? Using other different types of technologies within that stack is also going to evolve, so I could kind of go all day about what that is, but we'll look at VAST. VAST Storage has done an amazing job, and WEC have done an amazing job in the storage space, doing extremely well for providers like Ken to be able to do that. Neither of those were necessarily around 3 or 4 years ago in the conversation from a storage standpoint. It was all flash. Well, now they are very much in the forefront of everything. So I think there's going to be some changes that come with the infrastructure itself.
What we're seeing, so Thursday I'm flying from here to a data center colocation operator. They have 80 customers, they have capacity, and the owner-operator explained they do not understand the economics, but they want to participate. So what we are seeing is that we cut our teeth, we have 2 years of scar tissue. We're not going to teach someone, go through this process, but we can partner. So we're seeing a select group, a handful of 1, 3, 5 locations of smaller owner-operators looking to implement what we've put in place. And they are also struggling with what's next, and is H100 as an example, our current design, good enough? And our data shows that we probably have a 5 to 7 year useful life, revenue generating offering, because it's more than just the GPU, it's storage network service, white glove, use case development. So when we work through the actual entire stack of what we're providing, it's compelling for smaller operators, and we're now seeing that. So, I guess stay tuned. But we have a handful of folks that we're talking to, and we hope to have a couple of these partnerships by year end formalized, where we are moving to place our reference architecture into smaller operators, smaller by comparison to a hyperscaler or some of the larger organizations.
Ken, question for you, but welcome the panel to chime in as well. What are you seeing, or what do you anticipate as some of your predominant day two challenges, meaning your GPU as a service is up and running, your clients are on board, you're running workloads. What are you seeing, or what would you anticipate as kind of those day two challenges, so to speak?
The good news is day two for us, we've been an operator of a data center for 20 years, so we're not worried about the power and cooling. We are actively hiring and searching for NVIDIA software stack expertise, the data science side. That's a practitioner, not academic, but more enterprise with product delivery. We have someone in our organization that has become an AI hardware specialist. So we're actually having to grow a data pipeline, data practice. We're seeing that being a need that we have to address. So day two is more of use case development, working closely with enterprise and providing that expertise that they either don't have in-house or they staffed up maybe data science that's more traditional, not systems engineering thinking. So we're having to augment and grow a team to deliver that level of service. So for us, it's less about the infrastructure, more about the overall solution delivery and covering, I guess, full value stream coverage for the customer, because they're not going to move, and what we've seen is move critical resources from a team and try to upskill them, which they may view as a distraction from the current day job. So we're looking to augment and fill the gaps of the organization. I don't think I can hear you.
You mentioned earlier a little bit about the transition from training to inference and the different kind of hardware stacks required and where those are required. At what point do you see inference as being most of the compute for the market here?
Yeah, soon. It's 90% training and about 10% inferencing now. In the next couple of years, it'll flip to 90% inferencing. And I think that, we all got our phones blown up in January with DeepSeek and seeing what can be done with different types of stacks and open source. So I just think more innovation's coming. But the inferencing layer is going to take a heavier load for that for sure. And I know we're about time, so I just want to be respectful of the folks coming in and the next presenters. But anything else, Ken, for us?
I think that's it. I think we're good.
All right.
Thank you for attending. Appreciate it.
Thanks all.